I made a video a few months ago talking about how the door only swings one way. I was speaking to Zionist Jews in the mainstream Jewish community who are alarmed about some of their friends and families and the direction they're taking, turning against Israel and standing up for Palestinian rights and wondering what's going on. And I said, you're going to have to get your head around the fact that you've lost these people because the door only swings one way. It doesn't go in the opposite direction. If you've been attached to Israel as a Jewish state and thinking that its actions are justified and seeing Israeli Jews as the victims of the Palestinians, and then you actually learn about a different point of view you were never taught. Once that point of view gets you, you're got. You can't go back. You can't unsee it. It doesn't work in the opposite direction because that's called waking up out of chauvinist illusions. It just works in that one direction. And I've been thinking about what it must be like now in April, all these months later. I mean, that was in December. A lot's changed since then, actually. For a lot of us who are watching these horrors, if you don't want to call it a genocide, that's up to you. That's fine. I don't care what you call it. Actually, I mean, it is one. But if you don't want to call it that, then I would say, okay, well, how many rungs down the ladder of atrocity is it? Is it like one step removed from genocide? Is it 2 steps removed? 3 steps? How close to genocide are you comfortable being on the side of? Whatever it is, it ain't good. And there's more and more evidence that it's at least very plausibly somewhere up there in that top tier of horrible things we would never want to be associated with. And more of the world sees it that way. And that's what I've been thinking about. What must it be like at this stage to still be clinging to the idea that Israel's the victim? To still be hoping to convince the world of that view? It's got to be really painful. I think it must be sinking in at this point. In the wake of the killings, what the consensus seems to be, no matter what the Israeli army's internal self-investigation says, were deliberate, targeted killings, pretty systematic, whatever you think of the deliberateness, they seems to have been pretty systematic killings of the World Central Kitchen aid workers, the bombing of the Iranian embassy in Damascus, a whole lot of just madness on Israel's part, just kind of a lot of going rogue and doing things that are very hard to explain or defend. What must it be like in this moment? I mean, you had Stephen Colbert on his show the other night talk about how if this was a tragic mistake and these things happen in war, then why aren't you talking about ending the war? Now, of course, I think Colbert's full of shit in a lot of ways. He was on stage the previous week in like shades and a suit, palling around with war criminals like Obama and Clinton and Biden. But he heard the heckles and he heard the protests. And even he now, on his show, the Christian in him maybe wakes up, or maybe he just can't afford anymore to not say anything. But either way, you're losing these people. Now you're losing them. When I talked in December about you losing your young, woke Jewish grandkids or whatever, that's one thing. You could say, oh, they're a fringe. I don't know, man. The world seems to be turning. The world seems to be seeing things they can't unsee about Israel. Britain is up in arms about 3 of their military heroes being slaughtered by Israel. And this explanation that it was just an accident, it's not really washing. Now, I think there's a whole lot of theater going on of, oh, Biden's furious, and he called Netanyahu into the principal's office and gave him a good grounding. I don't believe that for a second. I think that's all PR. But I do think that when Israel starts to lose the media class and the intellectual class and the entertainment class, which is turning against Israel, or it's starting to speak up. You know, I for some reason was asked to sign a letter alongside my dad and then a lot of people in Hollywood. Is sort of an odd thing, but I guess technically I'm a writer. You know, Ilana Glazer, I forget who else. It's in Variety, you can check it out. But a lot of Jews speaking up about this witch hunt against Jonathan Glazer, the director of the Zone of Interest. This is new, guys. We haven't seen this before. I mean, Israel is well on its way, if it isn't there already, to being a complete pariah state. It's embarrassing now to support Israel. It's actually getting to be embarrassing, and it's got to be very, very difficult to be in this position of always having been on the safe side, the side that's aligned with power. Even have Chuck Schumer, Mr. Ride or Die for Israel, getting on the Senate floor and saying that Netanyahu and the extreme right wing in Israel are as much of an obstacle to peace as Hamas and the Palestinian Authority are. Not only that, but as Norman Finkelstein pointed out, he talked about how a lot of young people are starting to really gravitate towards the notion of a one-state solution, which is to say the dissolution of the Jewish state and the replacement of it with a binational, democratic, free society for all, which pretty much amounts to a free Palestine. This, from the river to the sea. And he doesn't support that, but he didn't say it's anti-Semitic either. He didn't accuse these young people of being unreasonable. He didn't call them Jew haters. He said young people are more and more gravitating towards that, and I disagree. But essentially he was saying it's understandable. It's an acceptable position now that we have to contend with. I think if you're an Israel supporter right now, somewhere in you, you know that the game is lost. There is no going back from this. Like, really. Take the bravado of these, Twitter hasbaras like Elon Levy, who continues to do it, freelance without being paid for it, even ever since he's been fired, and he's so bad at it. But take these people out of the mix, and their bluster and bravado. They're wind-up dolls. They have no other setting, and they have to project an era of impenetrable Zionist self-confidence. Who's going to be left after a few more months of this? Who in their right mind is going to want to be associated with this country? More and more Americans see their tax dollars going towards what's surely going to be remembered as maybe the worst atrocity of the 21st century. Up until now. The Iraq War is definitely in the running. That was a full-scale invasion and a war, and it's sort of hard to get your head around that. But this is a targeted, concentrated, in a tiny area, millions of people. We're seeing live stream starvation. Look, you can make all the arguments you want. You can justify it as much as you want. But what must it actually feel like inside right now to be reaching for these arguments while you're just losing the whole world? And Israel's doing it to itself, and you know that. We don't even have to make the case. I'm out here making these videos, doing whatever. Israel's doing its own counter-propaganda, really, with its own actions. And, I wonder if Zionists at this point know how other people see them. I know you want to probably think, oh, they see us as proud Jews defending ourselves, and they hate that, or they see us as settler colonialists, and we're not. Well, sure, they do see you as that, and if you want to say you're not, I'm not going to try to convince you are. But you know what they really see you as? They see you as narcissists. They see you as babies. They see you as diseased, actually, like mentally unwell, paranoid, gaslighting, people who are completely unable to take responsibility for anything, people who bully other people into sympathizing with you the minute any opportunity for accountability comes up. People who are really against humanity in a fundamental way. Jose Andres, the celebrity chef, the head of the World Central Kitchen, actually said, this is not a war against Hamas, this is a war against humanity. That's an incredible thing for that guy to say. I mean, he's highly tied to the State Department. His group was coordinating with Israel. He's one of the US and Israel's favorites. And he's not buying this bullshit about it being a tragic mistake. But going much further than that, him saying this is a war against humanity, that's a remarkable thing for someone like that to say. And Israel did it to itself. It absolutely did it to itself. And so if it's a war against humanity, who do you think's going to win this war? Do you think humanity is going to lose? I mean, maybe if Israel drags the US and Iran into a nuclear war, we'll lose in that respect. But if it's a war against humanity, who's going to win the war of ideas? Who's going to win the propaganda war? Who's going to convince who? What hope in the world do you Zionists have that you're going to win anyone back or win anyone over with this stuff? How's that going for you?